Hello and welcome to my channel NBSoundHopperUK, and the subject of this video will be spoken word meets music in 10 albums. Looking through my albums recently, I was surprised at how many of them feature spoken word as a major component, more than enough for this video in fact. However, I split them into three categories: rap albums, albums influenced by literature, and those not rap or inspired by literature. The focus of this video will be the albums that aren't rap or based on books, although in some cases they do tell a story. Most of the names I'll be referring to will probably be unfamiliar, so I've annotated the images which will be shown below me when I speak about each album. The albums cover several genres and they're presented in chronological order. First is Word Jazz by Ken Nordine from 1957. It's been said that Ken Nordine has a voice which is better known than his name due to the amount of voiceover work he did. That's certainly true in the USA. In the UK, I imagine that there aren't a huge number who even know his voice, but it's a rich, warm one, and as well as being a voiceover artist, he recorded several albums, especially in the late 1950s. Word Jazz was the first of them. Coinciding with the time of the Beat Generation, the use of jazz as a backdrop to his tales made sense. The music was played by the Fred Katz Group. Katz was a cellist, and the group also featured Chico Hamilton on drums. The jazz is quite laid back, almost easy listening, but it complements Nordine's voice. The subjects can be surreal, almost sinister at times, such as on Roger, What Time Is It, or Flippity Jib. The Sound Museum departs from jazz and is an early example of electronic experimentation. If you're the least bit interested in more unusual albums, you can't go wrong with this one. Next is Cosmic Sounds by the Zodiac from 1967. Arguably, Cosmic Sounds embodies what many might call hippie shit in all its glory or infamy, depending on your point of view on such matters. One thing that can be said about it is that in part it went on to influence hauntology music 30 to 35 years later. The album contains 12 tracks, one for each symbol of the Zodiac. The music was written by electronic pioneer Mort Garson, the electronics were played by Paul Beaver, and the words were spoken by Cyrus Furrier. Other musicians of note to play on the album are Carol Kay on bass and Hal Blaine on drums, both part of the crack team of session musicians known as the Wrecking Crew. It's the words, though, spoken in a very languid style that will either make you cringe or smile, with the overall themes being love, peace, universal harmony, and everyone is beautiful sort of stuff. Like Word Jazz, it's worth owning for its strangeness. Ogden's Nut Gone Flake by the Small Faces from 1968 is easily the most well-known album in this list. The spoken word part of it is only on side 2 and is provided by Stanley Unwin. There are 6 tracks on this side of the album, collectively known as Happiness Stan. Unwin sets the scene for the tracks and outlines their part in the surreal story about Happiness Stan's search for the missing half of the moon. It involves taking a trip on the back of a giant fly and eventually meeting a hermit known as Mad John, who reveals all about why Stan can only see half of the moon. I will mention at this point that Unwin speaks his own garbled form of English called Unwinese, so part of the fun is trying to translate and make out what the hell he's going on about. Musically, it's the Small Faces' most ambitious album, their equivalent of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper or SF Sorrow by the Pretty Things or The Who Sell Out. As well as reaching number 1 in the UK album chart, the track Lazy Sunday reached number 2 in the UK singles chart. The Seasons is a 1969 album by David Cain and Ronald Duncan. The 1960s were perhaps the period where the BBC Radiophonic Workshop were at its most creative. David Cain of the Workshop wrote the music for Ronald Duncan's slightly creepy poetry. As the title suggests, it's about the 4 seasons, with 1 track for each of them, as well as 1 for each month of the year, and 1 for the year as the whole, so 17 tracks in all. What makes it creepy is that it all seems dark and paganistic, and considering this project was intended for a BBC schools drama series, aimed at inspiring primary school children to take up interpretive dance. A proposal to do something similar these days, I imagine, would raise a few eyebrows among school governors. The poetry was read by BBC staffer Derek Boskill in not exactly warm tones, and David Cain's electronics are harsh and austere, which adds to the overall eeriness. As a fan of Moonwiring Club, Pansonic and Autechre, I think it's great, but for children as young as 8, it might well have inspired more towards nightmares rather than interpretive dance. Forces of Victory by Linton Kwesi Johnson was released in 1979. This was poet Linton Kwesi Johnson's debut album, and it stands as a document exposing many of the realities faced by black people living in Britain in the 1970s. Over 45 years later, some of those issues remain relevant today, showing how far things have and haven't progressed in that time. The tracks It's No Funny, Sonny's Letter, Independent Intervention and Fight Them Back are 4 hard-hitting examples. The album has some top names from the reggae scene playing on it, including Rico on trombone, Floyd Lawson and Vivian Weathers on bass, Lloyd Jarbunny Donaldson on drums, and many more. Among the many more is Dennis Bovell, who co-produced the album, as well as playing some of the keyboard parts and supplying backing vocals. Bovell went on to produce and help create the phenomenal sound found on the album Why by the pop group. As UK reggae albums go, Forces of Victory is an absolute must-have. The 6th selection is Snap, Crackle and Bop by John Cooper Clarke from 1980. John Cooper Clarke. There are few people I've heard with quite the same way with words and style of delivery as the Bard of Salford. On Snap, Crackle and Bop, there's the customary scathing wit on tracks like The It Man, pathos by way of Beasley Street, and a barrage of verbosity on Evidently Chicken Town and 36 Hours. 36 Hours is a track that, when I play it, it immediately gets played 3 or 4 times more, one of my all-time favourites. The music on John Cooper Clarke's albums was courtesy of the Invisible Girls, a loose group of musicians with Martin Hannett, more famously known as a producer, and Steve Hopkins being the core members. Guest members included the likes of Bill Nelson and Pete Shelley. The music itself covers quite a range, including electropop, fairly straightforward rock, as well as more experimental sounds. Understandably, though, the music never overshadows the main attraction, that is John Cooper Clarke. Next, we've got Unsavoury Products by the Black Dog and Black Sifichi from 2002. Electronic group The Black Dog have been around for over 35 years now. Black Sifichi is an American spoken word artist based in Paris. The album came about by accident, as the Black Dog had planned to record an album with William S. Burroughs. Unfortunately, though, Burroughs died before the album could be realised, so they hooked up with Black Sifichi to make Unsavoury Products. For fans of the Black Dog, it has the solid level of quality and invention that can be found on many of their albums. Black Sifichi's voice and his bizarre tales take things into a different space completely, though. Clearly inspired by literary giants of the Beat generation like Burroughs, Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, Black Sifichi's at times drawling tones are superb. There are 20 tracks, of which Wishing Well, Dog Bite, Inconspicuous Audiometric, Pigeon Chest, Mental Health Hotline and Someone at the Office are particular highlights. Before I go any further, here's a glimpse at what's in the planning stages for this channel.
Well, I think you'll find this program's in rather marked contrast to the program that's preceded it, because tonight we're going to have a look at one green wave.
Eighth is The Crying of Lot 69 by Eugene S. Robinson and Philippe Petit from 2011. As well as being the vocalist with avant-garde San Francisco group Oxbow, Eugene S. Robinson is also an author, journalist and mixed martial arts specialist. On The Crying of Lot 69, he narrates a story written by himself specifically for this album. He co-wrote the album with French experimental musician Philippe Petit, who since the late noughties has built up quite an extensive discography. On the Crying of Lot 69, Petit performs most of the music with the help of a few others. The story is told from the perspective of a killer for hire and is about a hit that doesn't go according to plan. There's more than a touch of David Lynch-style weirdness about it. Petit's music largely consists of a frame of dissonant, almost mechanical noise over which assorted rhythms and a few basic melodies, mainly electronic, come into the foreground. In one or two of the chapters, the sound becomes rather maximal, like all available space for the music to exist in has been used up. It's effective, although there are points where it becomes hard to discern what Robinson is saying. Therefore, repeated listens are essential to put it all together bit by bit. My penultimate selection is Ohrwurm by Michel Faber and Andrew Liles from 2014. Ohrwurm, or in English, earworm, as I'm sure most people know, refers to a song or sound that you can't get out of your head. In this darkly comic tale, Dutch-born author and narrator Michel Faber puts a twist on its meaning. This is a story about a deadly plague which is revealed to be caused by parasitic mites living among the chemicals and accumulated body oils in mobile phones. They burrow into people's heads and slowly grow into worms which devour the brain, causing people to commit suicide on account of thinking, with what's left of their brain, that they are hearing a given sound over and over again. Andrew Liles' music is in the main keyboard-based incidental music with Foley-type effects which superbly match what's going on in the story. Liles is an English experimentalist who has a vast discography covering all sorts of genres and has collaborated with many music artists including Surrealists, Nurse with Wound and German band Faust. Faber's tale ends with another suitably unusual twist which I won't divulge and spoil for anyone tempted to listen to this album for the first time. You used to be able to pick it up from Amazon rather cheaply, but Discogs may be the better option these days. Finally, it's Chalk Hill Blue by Will Burns and Hannah Peel from 2019. A Chalk Hill Blue is a butterfly that can be found in the kind of places inferred by its name. It could be described as a thing of rare beauty, and I think the same can be said of this album too. Hannah Peel is a Northern Irish composer and musician who has worked with bands like the Magnetic North and John Fox and the Maths. Will Burns, who grew up in Buckinghamshire amid the Chiltern Hills, wrote and narrates the poetry here. The poems mostly focus on rural life, the passage of time, particularly relating to family, and inevitable change happening on a personal level and to the landscape he occupies. It's not really nostalgic and doesn't contain a maudlin yearning for the past, but there is almost a sense of trepidation in the face of an uncertain future. Hannah Peel's music, largely using analogue synths, often in a discreet way, blends perfectly with the surroundings and feelings Burns describes. In hindsight, the theme of changes beyond our control proved to be curiously prophetic. COVID-19 hit us all less than a year after the album's release. Whilst not exactly what I'd call a folktronic album, I suspect it would appeal to fans of that subgenre. Artists not included in my list that I feel are worth a mention are Anne Clarke and Super Queens. I'm sure there are a host of others that I've not heard of who have made albums of this kind, so let me know in the comments below about any examples that you would have included in a list like this. In the video description there are links to a track from each of the albums I've spoken about, and details about subscribing, commenting, etc. are shown at the end of the video. In the meantime, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching.